Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Discover Neo4j AuraDB. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, Michael. How are you doing
Hi,
today?
Alex. I'm good.
Hi,
It's
good to
pretty warm,
see you. Yeah,
and it's
it's
pretty
not
warm
so
out
warm
there.
here.
And this morning it was actually cooler. I was on the balcony. But excited to be back after a month, and really cool topic that we have today. A little bit more hands-on than usual, so everyone can code along. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
And let's see if we can make this work with everyone. I hope you will help us, everyone who's attending. And I'm really looking forward to see how this works out and have some fun together.
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward as well. I see a couple of friendly chatters as well. Hi, Yuri. Welcome again. Just in case anybody is wondering what this is all about, I'm just shared the Neo4j AuraDB Slack, sorry, not Slack, link to the Neo4j AuraDB offering in channel. Michael and I are now every couple of weeks now meeting and in this virtual space, and we talk about new features, new capabilities, general what you can do with Neo4j in the cloud, and what we are offering as the part of the platform, the wider ecosystem around the Aura platform, and want to give you a little bit of an incentive to try it out yourself, show you that it is easy, a good way to start, good way to kick things off, and keep you up to date in generally about what's happening, what's new, what's fresh, what do we currently work on, what do we think about adding in the future. And if you have any feedback, any features you'd like to see, obviously this is also a great place for you to give us your feedback and let us hear what you think we should be adding in terms of your perspective, what you were doing as a user with Neo4j in the cloud. And
Exactly.
today,
So,
like you
I
said,
mean, just before we go to today's, perhaps we should mention what we showed recently. So we looked at dashboards, which is a new release in Aura, and how you can quickly generate a dashboard with kind of a single click on one of your databases. So that was pretty cool. And then also we looked at like cloud data import, so you can import data from BigQuery, Snowflake, and Databricks as well as from relational databases. That's something that we showed recently, and there's more cool stuff coming. Actually, I'm really excited. Can't wait to show this to you all. So stay tuned for some more really cool features that are coming on Aura as well.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'll find the blog for the dashboards at least in a second, and I'll put it in the channel, so that that's a good way for you to recap basically on what we did last time. But nevertheless, I think the most, I would say, top topics, I guess, in the past from us, but from the wider AI world, I would say, is MCP. And I think you had a couple of webinars already in the past. You and Zach, you did a very comprehensive blog post on our blog as well. I think I can find that as well. And today, I think you had the idea of let's do something together to show off what can you do with MCP and knowledge graphs combined as a as them working together, the two tools basically.
Exactly. So that's something I would love to try with all of you. So this is kind of a workshop that I gave at a conference last week or 2 weeks ago, actually, which I put together really quickly. Which basically the intent is to show here how easy it is to take an MCP server, integrate it as a tool into an agentic framework, but then also how to use the different tools that an MCP server uses to collaborate on data, how to build up a knowledge graph using that, and then also how to analyze it with a little bit more of hands-on experience. And to do this together, I thought we use my demo repo. So I put together a demo repository that has a bunch of example minimal hello world level agents. So this uses Google's Agent Development Kit, ADK, with MCP together. So if you go to this repository, it's called github.com/jxp/adk-mcp-test, or you follow the QR code, but it's probably easier to type on a computer. If you go there and open this on a Codespace, This will take a few minutes to start. That's why I talk a little bit more while you're waiting for this to start up. And then you can follow along with me and Alex trying to do things together here. And this is already partially configured. We'll talk a little bit more about what we need to do as the next steps. But if you just go to this repository, ADK MCP test under JEXP, my GitHub account, and then click on launch a Codespace on this repository. You don't have to download it or run locally. You can just run it on the cloud. If you want to run it locally, you can do, of course, as well. But then it might be a little bit look a little bit different, and then you should be more bit experienced Python dev to get it up and running. But it should not be too hard either. Okay. And while this is starting in the background, Alex, if you can share the link to the repo in the chat as well, so then people can click on it.
I did.
Yeah. Awesome. So what we wanted to talk about a little bit is we already talked about this more or less in the past when we talked about GraphRag in general, kind of that retrieval augmented generation can give basically the LLM access to real data, basically to answer your questions. But with MCP and tools, we actually go one step further. So I can skip all of this. We talked about this many times, that graphs and LLMs go together really well, where the LLMs provide the language skills and the database provides the actual factual accurate data in the context. And if we put this all together, then we can use knowledge graphs for this. So this is from the workshop. But retrieval on graphs is basically GraphRag, where the retrieval part is using graph data structures or knowledge graph, right? So, and that's what we want to do today, but also in general, when we talk about GraphRag at Neo4j, then we say basically the retrieval happens through a knowledge graph, so you can have much more relevant context. So you don't just retrieve from an index certain pieces of text or certain entities, but you also see how are these entities connected, what's around these entities, basically how are they connected to the context of the user, and so on. So the information that we provide to the LLMs to generate the answer is much richer than that as such. Okay, and this, as you know, works like this. We have our graph, we can look up some entities and then follow relationships in the graph to find the additional context. So if you can look into we won't go into the GraphRag demo, which we did before. So we talked about GraphRag patterns, but what I wanted to talk a little bit more about is agents. So as I said, GraphRag is kind of this, or RAG in general is the simple approach where we provide the information to an LLM to answer a question, right? Agents kind of take this a step further, where the LLM gets more agency. That's why it's also kind of agent or agentic. So it basically can decide, given a user question, how do I break this down into individual subtasks? How do I extract information for each of the subtasks? What kind of tools or function do I need to call to get the information or do the job for each subtask? And then only at the end, when I'm done with like capturing and collecting all this information, I go back to the user with the complete answer, right? And here is an example of this, where we see, let's go to the actual example of this one, to the example where we see basically this is a complex question and we have a number of tools registered with our agent. These tools are coming as an MCP server or can come as an MCP server. And then the LLM takes this complex question, breaks it up into its 3 subtasks, basically. So we want to get the articles by sentiment in January 2023. So it sees January 2023 as a parameter that goes into one of these tools, into the articles in months tool. And then it needs to basically itself figure out what top 3 articles by sentiment mean, because that's not part of the tool. That's something that the LLM has to do in post-filtering itself, basically. So it needs to look at the sentiment of the article, see what are like the top 3 itself. And then basically uses these article IDs to get companies that I mentioned. So that's the second tool. That's basically company and article that it calls as the second step. And then basically takes these companies and then calls the people at company tool multiple times with each company, so that it collects basically the people that work in this company's individual. So basically these 3 subtasks, the LLM basically breaks down in an agent and then executes the tools one after the other, using the data that it got from the previous call. Sometimes it needs to call these tools in sequence, sometimes it calls them in a loop. And it also needs to be able to identify, for instance, reference it like there or in which roles and things like that, and so it basically needs to also resolve ambiguity in the task as well as part of this whole planning process, right? And then it executes that and then gets us the answer back, and this would look like this. Basically, it would get this information from these articles back as such, right? And this is basically a system which runs in a loop. It's also sometimes called the React pattern, where the LLM breaks this down. And so this is what we can do today with these agentic systems. And then Agent Development Kit is one of these frameworks that exist, similar to LangGraph from LangChain, or Strands from AWS, or Semantic Kernel from Microsoft, or CrewAI, or AgenticAI, which are other agent frameworks as well. So ADK is here really just an example for that, right? And why should we care about like this memory thing, right? So I personally find this quite interesting, because an agent, when you run it as such, is kind of stateless, right? So it does the task and forgets basically whatever it did before. But as you work with these agents, they should actually be able to accumulate memory about you, about typical tasks, about what worked in the past, what didn't work in the past, or if you just want to give it more world knowledge about yourself, your organization, and so on. So basically what we want to do is basically we want to use the Google Agent Development Kit here, integrate the Neo4j MCP memory server to store some memories. So we basically make this MCP server available to the agent, so it can store some memories. And then we want to retrieve these memories and visualize them, look at them a little bit in the database, see what they look like. And then basically we can also use a Cypher query language-based MCP server to then query this graph as if it was any other database, right? So because, yes, we can use it as a memory graph, but we can also say, okay, it's just a graph database like any other knowledge graph. And then we can also run Cypher on top of it. So that's what I wanted to do today a little bit and see how well it works. Okay, with all of me talking, we should have gotten to Codespace running for everyone. If anyone had an issue, please let us know in the chat. But otherwise, I would go ahead and move to the next steps as such. Alex, you have to tell me. I don't see the chat right now, so you have to tell me if there's anything.
I'm looking at the chat. Let's just type if you have any issues, but I don't see any issues. I was able to get it running.
Exactly. So we tried it actually for this session, and Alex got it running with his GitHub account as well. So I hope you should all be able to run a Codespace on this repository. If not, you can still download it or clone the repository locally. If you have some Python experience, it should also be possible to do that. Okay. In the repository, there's this link to this Google Doc here. That's what we need next. But let me switch over to my other screen. And we can look at this. So this is the repository, as I showed you, right? Up and running. It explains also a little bit how to use this. And here is my Codespace running. No, I want you to keep working. I don't want you to. Oh no, it stopped. Okay, I need to restart my Codespace. I hope this won't take too long. So,
no,
I think it stops after 30 minutes of inactivity or something like that. So whenever you come back, it still exists, but they have to restart the container for the Codespace as such. While you're waiting for this to start up, the only other thing that you need to do is basically from this repository. Okay, now it's running again. So usually it should open up with this README file here, or a preview of the README actually. So this is what you should see. Basically, there's a terminal down here, there's the README down here, and the files should be on the left. So that's how it should start for you all as well. So, and the only thing that you need to do is you have to go to this run.sh file, and we need to put in this Google API key. And I don't want you to type it off the screen, but in the repository, I added a link here that I will disable after this session, and also remove the key as well. If you click on this, you should get to this agent memory livestream document, and here's the Google API key. So I basically just took a key from Google's AI Studio, basically, that you can use as such. So there's a little bit of an issue with usage limits. So if some of you run into like an quota exceeded or requests exceeded, that's because this is kind of using the open public AI Studio API key. So I talked to the Google people as well, and they said, yeah, it's the way it is. It's meant for individual usage and not for a lot of people using it. But let's see. I think it's okay for this kind of workshop, because I didn't want to get you all through an Vertex AI project setup, which is much more involved as such.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so we take this API key and copy and paste it basically into this run.sh here, where it says Google API key. Save the file with Command S, or also autosaves as such. And then you should be able to just run /run.shell. And this in the first time, it takes a few seconds to install the dependencies, which does the UV sync does here. And we also use UV as a package manager for Python, because I like it a lot and it works actually quite well. And so after a few seconds, it should basically come up here and say ADK web server started. For local testing, access this URL. But of course, as it's running in Codespace, it's running on the web in a container, right? So and the Codespace people actually thought about this and allows you, if you run something on Codespace as a container, it allows you to actually forward the port or the application that's running there to your local computer, so you can open it up in your browser, which is actually quite nice as such. So I hope that you can follow along with us. I also put in the README, so if you want to run this locally or with other databases, then let me know. Or let us know. The other thing that I wanted to call out here is I added here a Neo4j connection details as well in the run.shell, which is actually a shared database. So everyone is using the same database, because what I wanted to do is kind of for us all together get our memories added to the same database. So you can imagine this as being like a team or project memory database, right? So there are people working on something together, basically jointly add their memories or their information to one database. You can run this memory server, of course, also locally with your own local copy of Neo4j to capture your own local memories, or in whatever setup you want to run this, right? So this is just an example for the workshop. It's by no means that you by default should have a shared memory as such, right? So it's really just as a demonstration for a workshop, because it's nicer as if each of us would just use the isolated database. But if you want to use your own Aura database, you can just go to Aura and in instances, basically create a new Aura free instance or Pro trial instance or Pro instance. I just did this here with the memory server. And then you can put in the credentials for that database there as well. Okay, so let me just take the next step if no one ran into issues with this, Alex.
Yeah, Yuri had a message that he said I need explicitly bind Docker to 000 and so on because it did not connect. So I guess that was maybe some kind.
Yeah,
maybe it's
but it's a local setup.
Issue.
I think that's a local setup issue. That's not in Codespaces as such. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
But then you probably know enough about Docker to sort this out. But thanks you for sharing. Okay, and then what we have here is basically this application which runs now on the web. I can actually open this in my browser here. And it will open, connect to this forwarded port from Codespaces. And we should, in a few seconds, we should see the UI from the Agent Development Kit, which is an developer AI. So it's definitely not meant for end users as such, right? So don't get me wrong. But it's nice for development and seeing what's actually happening, how the different agents execute their task and so on. And here on the left side, you can actually start with an agent. So let's start with the Hello agent. And to see what the Hello agent does, we can go back to either the repository or our code here and look at, where's the Hello agent? Here's the Hello agent. And we can look at agent.py. And our Hello agent has actually two tools that we provide to the agent. Let's scroll to the end and we see the agent actually. So our agent is super simple. It just uses Gemini 2.5 Flash. And the instructions is basically your friendly chat companion that answers some questions. Don't make stuff up. Use the known topics. And it has two tools. One is the Hello tool and the other one is the dice tool. Right? So the dice tool is a very simple roll an n-sided dice or die. as such, right? So for instance, a W20 or W6 or something like that. Or D6 basically in English. It's not W. It's a D6 or D20, of course. Sorry, German speaking here. And then the hello tool is basically just hello in different languages, right? Of course, we know that LLMs can do this themselves, but I thought that's a nice, friendly way of interacting as such. So we have like a few languages here where we can get hello back. But these are the two tools that the agent has currently available. This hello agent. And if you use this hello agent, then we can basically say roll a d20. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask it first which tools it has available. So I totally forgot about that. So let me ask it afterwards. So we rolled a 15. So, and if you click on these, you actually see what happens here, right? So you have basically visualization of tool calling. You see what signatures and IDs it has. It says it uses the dice tool with this count as the number of sides of the die. And then it basically gets how many tokens did it use and so on. And then here we see actually the result, which is 15, which it then returns to the user as such, right? We can also ask it what tools it has available. What tools do you have available? Question mark. And then it should tell us which tools it has available. I can say hello in different languages and dice a tool that can run inside the die, right? So we can, for instance, ask it, what is hello in Turkish? And my Turkish is not good, so I can't actually verify this, but the capital of France, Paris. So that's probably not what we wanted to know, right?
That's not what we wanted to know.
Let's try this again. What happened here? Because it says actually hello in Turkish is merhaba, TR. Let's see what Google translates as. Hello. Yes, no, I don't want to do this in Hindi. I want to do this in English. And I want to translate to Turkish. Yeah, so that was correct, right? So it got the right answer, but then for some reason, don't ask me why. This would be really interesting. It answered this, which makes no sense, right? So that's, which actually shows us an...
Good that we showed this.
It shows us kind of the probability and also the importance of evals in agent systems, right? So you should. Yeah. So I don't know. It's stuck now with Paris, and so we can actually, let's try a new session. I'm not sure what it did here. So let's see. Okay. Now it correctly translated it as such. Okay. So I don't know what was in the session history or whatever. So, but you see, you need evals to properly have agent systems.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is the really simple agent, the hello agent with just two tools, right? And it even struggles with that, right? So I don't know. Skynet is probably not so threatening after all. But what we wanted to do now is basically our memory knowledge graph, right? So we have talked about a little bit about the MCP servers in the live stream with Zach, if you remember, and there was also a webinar later on. We talked about these, and so we have a number of MCP servers for Neo4j. Now we have 4 or 5 actually already. So we have the Cypher server, the memory server, the Aura API server, and the data modeling server, which is more recent from my colleague Alex Gilmore. And we will look at the memory server today and the Cypher server. So the memory server is actually something that originally started from Anthropic. And they built a memory server that just stores memories as JSON files, basically. But in a knowledge graph already. They already had these kind of concepts of an entity with observations and connected with relationships to other entities. So it's kind of like, from PKM systems like Obsidian or Rome or Logsec, right? So where you can basically store connected information as from Markdown, but it then also finds the connections between all your nodes as well. Right, so this is kind of this style of representation. So you have a memory and relationships between these memories, right? And then as tools, it has things like create entities, delete entities, create relationships, delete relationships, add observations to memories, and then also read tools like read the whole graph, search certain nodes, and so on. So I thought, oh, actually, this sounds very, very well fitting to a graph database like Neo4j, right? So, and then basically I re-implemented the Anthropic MCP server in Neo4j. And that's what the MCP memory server does here. So we can actually switch next to our memory server, and the memory server is also a very minimal agent, basically, which basically is able to store and retrieve conversational memories, and it has available these tools that come from the memory and the MCP server, and we just pass in the config from the .env here from our environment in the run.sh, right? So, and then it connects to Neo4j, and if we switch over in our ADK here to a new agent, we can ask it, what tools do you have available? And we should see the tools, something that's actually quite common in demos of AI systems. People don't pay so much attention to spelling because the LLM always figures out what you actually mean. And so I mistyped available here, but so you see exactly the tools that we just saw in the README for the memory server as well. So this agent now has access to all of these tools. And if you want, you can also filter these tools. So when you make MCP servers available in ADK, for instance, you can actually filter which of these tools are available as such, right? So that's actually something that's quite useful. For instance, if you want your agent only to have read access to to a tool and not write access, then you can basically only allow tools that are only reading and not writing to that endpoint or to this tool as such, right? Okay, and now we can basically say, let me see, I have prepared here something. Let me just copy that, and I can say basically, remember, my name is Michael. I work at a company Neo4j, and we are running a Neo4j live stream today with my colleague Alex, using MCP for conversational memory, right? And to show you what's currently in our database, you can actually look at our memory database. Let's do this. And if I run, come on. Okay, we are connected now. If I run this statement here again, oops, this statement here again, then we see it's nothing in there, right? So actually, we should actually ask the agent, right? So let's ask the agent, what memories do you have access to? Okay, and then should come back to us and say it reads the graph and it has no memories available right now. Okay, and now we can say, okay, let's start having it remember something. So, and this is where we all come together, and I can say basically, remember, my name is Michael Hunger, and so on, what I just read to all of you. And now it will basically take this information and call the different tools. At least I hope that it does. It always did in my demos, but for some reason, it's not behaving today, Alex. Interesting. Following tools, read graph, and then here's my text. But the current event got lost somehow. Interesting. Okay, let's try this again. I'm not sure what happened here. Anything in JavaScript console? No. Anything in our...
I'm just running mine and it's doing it.
Okay, so
you should now see. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's also not complaining here. So, and for Alex, it just did add the memories. So we have now Alex living in Munich. We can probably...
I just put in a very simple sentence, so I didn't add more.
So Alex runs in memory. So let me just, again, start a new session and we try it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now it works.
Here we go.
So it's demo mode, right? Yeah. So we see now it calls like the create entities endpoint with these information, the different people and companies, and then creates relationships between them. So we also see here the different relationships between people and other entities. And then if you go back to our Aura database, hopefully we should see, here's Neo4j, here's Alex living in Munich, and we're running the live stream today. It actually forgot to add that Alex is also working at Neo4j. Did you record that Alex is also working at Neo4j, question mark? Let's see. Oh, it didn't. Now it recorded it. So, and then Michael lives in Dresden, Germany. So also remember. So, and this is where you all come in. Please also help us add some more data to this graph, and let's see what else we can do. You, for instance, you could be attending this live stream, and or other things that you want to share, where you're living or what you're interested in. So, for instance, I could say, let's see, Michael is interested in graph and building MCP servers for the Neo4j graph database. So, and it can basically continues to record this information. But what's really interesting now is basically all this information is getting added to this database as well, right? So, and if you also add your information as well, then your information should pop up here in our graph database as well, because we have this shared database right now. But imagine we start a new session, right? So this is not a session that has actually any access to the previous data, but now we can actually use it and ask, what information do you have available about Alexander Ernl? So it finds information, and then Alex works at Neo4j. He's Michael, colleague of Michael. He runs Neo4j live stream. He lives in Munich. He loves to play board games, right? So, and then basically this information, the agent is also able to pull on demand, right? So I don't need to explicitly tell it to do this. I can also add this, for instance, to the system prompt of the agent, that whenever it doesn't know anything, it should first consult the agent memory and then use other tools as such, right? So that's something where we could change the system prompt and basically tell it to use it as such, right? And so I hope that some of you added also some additional information. Let's see. Not yet, but basically that's the idea behind this, right? So you can basically use externalized memories for this agent. And imagine I have an agent that has, let's say, we have something like forest fires in Germany, right? So there's like currently a forest fire in Germany happening, and imagine we had something like this information here, and we want to store this in our graph. We can, or I can also type it out. So imagine we had a file. Let's say I put something like this into a file. Let me do this. 1 second. Text document. Let me just put it into here. Fires.txt, and I just put it in downloads. And if I now add my to my agent, I can also upload files. So I just say in downloads, I have something like fires.txt and store this information as well. So it can also use other information from other sources and store this as well. So for instance, also if you have a long-running conversation with the agent, it can also capture the information or the essence of the information that you discussed, or if it got any insights about something that you discussed, and so on, right? So, and now we should, if you go back, we should also see this additional information about the fire. Peter. Peter's working at IBM, and we have Bart here as well, or information about Bart, actually. Of course, not Bart himself. I hope that Bart Simpson is probably not watching, but the other information should
Probably
be
not.
here as well. Yeah. So I'm actually not. So it created these entities as well, extreme weather condition, and it says it got no. Oh, I see, because in my query here, because it didn't use any relationships in here, so we can say optional match. So we should see the fire information here as well. Sorry. Where's our fire? Fire weather condition. There's fire weather condition. So somewhere we have fire weather condition in our graph, but I don't see it right now. So it's hiding. It's hiding somewhere behind the blue memory label. So there's our fire weather condition, right? So it also stored this information as well, right? Okay, and the next thing that I wanted to show is basically in the next step, we can actually use, so this memory MCP server has this fixed set of tools, right? So it can create entities, it can update entities, it can delete entities and relationships. But if you want to have more free access to a graph database, we can actually use the Cypher agent. And I called it like here the memory analytics agent, which is basically just using the MCP Neo4j Cypher with the same connection credentials. And here I filter actually the tools. I don't want it to write to the database. I just want it to be able to get the schema and read from the database as well. Right. So if we start, let's start a new session with a new agent. And this time we use the memory analytics agent, right? We can also ask it, what tools do you have available? And then it uses this information and says, I have this information available. And we can ask it, what is the schema of your database? And then it basically can retrieve the schema of the database and gives us information about what's currently in the database. And then it finds all these entity types, right? So we have organization, software, character, categories, and so on. And then we can also say, summarize the information in the database, give me entity types and counts for each of them. So now it needs to use the schema to generate on the fly a Cypher query, and it basically, or multiple Cypher queries, it seems.
Yeah.
And it basically runs these Cypher queries, and then let's see, read Neo4j Cypher, and it runs basically these queries. It could be a little bit more efficient, right? So it could just use all of them. Last time it used a more efficient query, but now it collects its results and then gives us the answer back, right? And then as a last thing, until it comes back, the memories in our database into a report. Come on, you can do it. I'm not so lucky with demos today.
No, today
something is not so good, right? So
not so favorable.
Yeah, it's probably the heat. Heat is affecting even our agents. So it got the results back, right? So we basically, actually no, it executed them, but it didn't get them back, interestingly. Okay, let's see what it does now. If I give it another task, or perhaps here. Okay, but the counts are actually wrong, right? So the counts, yeah, because it didn't get the results back, basically, right? So let's do this again. And then I say summarize the memories of our database. Actually, I meant the content. Okay, let's see if it actually. Okay. I'm not sure. Last time Alex and I ran this earlier today, it actually did one query where it got like all the results back. And oh, now it actually got results back. Okay.
Okay, good.
Let's see.
I don't know what's
yeah, so it has now here counts as well, right? So, but it used here it has 15 memories, 4 people, 1 company, and so on. Look at the actual data. Yeah, oh, actually, it asked about, would you like me to retrieve some examples of names of observations for these entities? Okay. Let's see if it does this. So that's what you usually want to do, is basically that you can basically look at the structural information on the database, but also at the content information of the database as well, right? But today is not my best day for demos, it seems, as such. The other thing that I wanted to show you really quickly as well is basically, let me just create a new, or I can probably do this again. I have connected the same memory tool here to Claude, right? So because it's an MCP server, I can not just only connect it to the agent development kit, but I can also connect it to, Cursor, to Claude, to ChatGPT, and Copilot, and all the other sources for data. So I also connected it to Claude, and I can basically go back and ask it again, what kind of memories do you have available? And it will go ahead and create a database, and first look at the graph, and then gives me a summary as such, right? So it's not limited to just one tool, but you can basically get information about all the other things that are in there as well, right? So that's basically the beauty of MCP. It's more like a universal protocol that can connect tools that provide actions or data together with AI assistants, agents, and so on. So that's actually quite powerful. And especially if you think about it, these tools can be different kinds of tools, right? So it could be a tool that accesses, Google Docs, or accesses data in a database, or data from an API, or data from another system, and then you pull it together in your conversation, basically, as you get data from one place. You can take results or insights from that and either store or retrieve it from another system as well. So you basically are creating a federation on the client side as such, right? Okay, and with that, I think I'm good. So ADK disappointed me a little bit today, so I'm really sorry to say that, but it used to be much better at this. Oh, now it gave us some examples here as well. But it's also using the smallest Gemini model as well, and with a really low rate limit API. But you have here a similar summary as well, right? And now, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? So you can basically combine these tools and create things using that as well.
Exactly. And I think that's the really the interesting part where we basically just showed where it starts, but combining this with all kinds of other tools, in linking information together in this way, that should open up very, very powerful opportunities.
Exactly, and we try to write down all these kind of things. So we created a developer page for MCP. So if you Google for Neo4j developer MCP, you should see this page somewhere on
Put it in chat.
top position. Yeah. Or Alex can also put it into chat. And here we explain a little bit what MCP servers and client hosts are, and then we talk a little bit about the individual MCP servers. And we also have our last live stream in here, have some of the examples on how to use them, including the memory stuff, Aura API management, modeling. We also now have an MCP server for Neo4j Sandbox as well, so you can manage and access your sandboxes with a hosted server. Actually, these were local servers that we looked at, but the sandbox server is actually a hosted server that you can configure, and also Google's MCP toolbox that I talked with Curtis on the live stream in January, I think, or February, right? And then also how to use this with agent frameworks as well. So we have like different examples for the agent frameworks as well. Cool. And with that, I think that's what I wanted to cover today. Any questions from the chat, Alex?
Fast. Yeah, I see one from Eshwar. and I think that's a good question for anybody. If we want to generate something like this automatically, data set, import data, and then create nodes, relationships, properties based on data that you have. We have a tool called the Knowledge Graph Builder, which is an online application, which I'll link in chat as well. It's a great way to get started. So you put any data set you have, any kind of unstructured data even you have available. You can just connect the app to your Aura instance that you have, and then throw something at it, and it's running some algorithms over it and do some entity recognition. You can give it some more guiding depending on how your graph looks like, and then you can go in direct conversation with your data as with the chatbot here, like Michael shows, and you can get started from there with I would say relatively low effort. Low effort point.
Exactly. And yes, you can also use these MCP tools to create data, right? So you can also have it basically, for instance, if I say here, if I have Claude, I can basically tell it, give it like a larger piece of text, and then it extracts the entities and the relationships and then would create them as data in your graph. This is probably not suited for mass data import, where you want to import like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of nodes of relationships. But for quickly getting started example graph, it's actually quite useful to show someone quickly would this document look like as a graph. That's also something where you can just upload a document or use a Google Doc with Claude, and it will create a reasonably okay graph for you. If you want to do more, then the Knowledge Graph Builder is definitely interesting, because here you can also provide a schema that then shows you kind of what is the kind of data shape of the information that I want to add as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Peter had another point. Peter says, it's interesting. I told it to change my name. It created new nodes and said it migrated my relationships, but it did not. Memory agent model.
Interesting. So that could be a shortcoming of the change Michael's or let's change Alex's name. This name to Alex. So I'm now in the analytics agent actually. So it can actually not do this because we excluded the modifying tools. But if I go back to the memory agent, that's a good point. So depending on what tools it has available, it should have the tools available to create new entities. And so it asks me actually, do you want me to delete Alexander and create a new entity named Alex? Okay, this is now running into the Google free tier rate limits already. But in principle, it depends a little bit on the smarts of the agent and the model. It should actually be able to first retrieve the information, then delete the existing entity, because there's no really change the name of something operation as a tool. It might be something that you can add to the MCP server, memory server. But it would have to read the information, recreate the entity, and relink it as such. So in principle, it should be able to do this as such. Would be interesting, Peter, why it didn't do that. But it's more a shortcoming of the model than of the MCP server as such. But the MCP server should probably also have an option to change the name of a memory as well. Good feedback. Cool.
Yeah. Peter says,
and with that,
modification forgetting is tough for these kinds of agents. Yeah, sometimes it needs to. That's another.
It also depends how much it keeps in the memory of the context of the conversation as well, right? So did it remember to retrieve the information first, and so on. So ideally, what you would to do in these MCP servers, you would provide the tools to at the right abstraction level, right? So for instance, something like an update entity method that would be able to change the name or something like that, right? So that could be, and then the right abstraction for such an operation that you would provide as such.
Yeah.
Cool. Really good feedback. Thank you, Peter.
Super.
Awesome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We both actually are heading to Berlin soon. So if you are going to We Are Developers this week, by any chance, step by the Neo4j booth that is there. and say hi. We're happy
A18
to have a chat with you.
No, 18A, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's the same, but yeah, that's there. If not, then Notes is happening in November. So looking forward to hearing interesting sessions and presentations around graphs, AI, and I'm sure MCP will have a relatively important part of the whole conference. So that would be your next thing to and look forward to, I would say.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point, Alex. I think we've seen a lot of our customers also using MCP to just integrate their knowledge graph with other data sources, and then making this available in the right way to the end users in an agent or chat experience as such, right? So where you then basically interactively can, create certain, let's say, workflows or study plans or manufacturing recipes or other things, which pulls data from the knowledge graph and pulls data from other systems, and then has a number of tools available that could basically generate a draft of, for instance, a new plan for something. And then someone else would, of course, review and accept it. But getting from zero to a draft of something is actually really interesting. And then they basically had 3 or 4 MCP tools that had access to the different systems, and one tool that was actually able to generate this draft entity as such. So it's definitely interesting to see how this is also used by customers in the real world as such.
Yep. Exactly.
Cool.
And
Thank you,
I think with
Alex,
that we're at the end.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for participating. I think it was a bit of an experiment today. It worked relatively well for what we did. So no, but it was okay. I mean, it is always a challenge with these live things when you never know how it goes down. But I think overall it was quite a nice experiment. The code is still up, so obviously Michael will remove the Google key. But if you want to try it yourself, if you want to play with that, just switch out another Google key or use another provider, and you're good to go, and have a little fun with it if you want to.
Yeah.
And with that, the next session is on the 17th of July, so next Thursday, where we'll talk about AuraDB, which is from our research team. James Clarkson will join me to talk about what he's doing with his research team and how they look at improving the performance of Neo4j in general and what they can find out. So we'll have a session about that. That's on the 17th of July in a week. Yeah, until then, cool. I hope to see you. Awesome. Let us know. If you like this episode, give it a like. Let us know in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Until then, until next time, basically. Thank you very much, Michael, again, for the
bye-bye.
nice one today. Thank you.
Yep.